Hi, everyone. It's Ryan Fowler here with Tim Costello and Jordan Kurtz, the Inner Game Group live today. We are going to look at the Cult of Personality, Exhibit A, Andrew Tate, but this is repeated many times before. We were just talking about Keith Rainier of Nexium. We were talking about Hitler, there's David Koresh down in Waco, Texas, and their compound got raided and burned to the ground by ATF and FBI. These cult or cultish figures. It's also the woke culture. These other extreme movements. Why do people fall into toxic movements? Now, I don't think that everything Tate teaches is bad. He does teach self-improvement, some other things. But there is a pattern here of disaffected people who find validation and belonging and get roped in into someone who ends up being, publicly admitting to many crimes. He's admitted to it on YouTube, so he's screwed. When he finally gets prosecuted in Romania, he's hosed. But so we're gonna have that conversation today. But before we dive into that, Tim, introduce yourself, and then Jordan, welcome to the show, guys.
Thank you, Ryan, and good to see you again, Jordan. I'm Tim Costello with TimCostelloHypnosis.com, and what all three of us do is help you regain your authenticity by loving yourself to the core. It will help you resist some of the things that we're talking about today because you'll recognize them for what they are immediately. Go ahead, Jordan.
100% agreed, Tim.
I'm Jordan Kurtz with Jordan Kurtz Hypnosis. I like these two. I help you find your limiting maladaptive beliefs and remove them so we can discover your full potential and to chase whatever matters most to you.
All right. Thank you, Jordan. So I guess we'll just dive into the clip. So the clip, just to kind of set it up. And by the way, we're going to talk about what is the solution to make these people less vulnerable so they don't get dragged in. And again, I think this applies. It happened with Hitler. It can happen with other ideologies. It can become quite harmful. What's going on? What's the solution? We actually have the solution. We're going to look, not only examine the clip, but look at the underpinning psychologically of why these people are vulnerable and what that solution is that Tim alluded to. What do we actually fix in your psyche so that these crazy toxic people lose their appeal? So just to set up this clip, it's Steve Bartlett, Diary of CEO. His channel's like over 6 million now. He's interviewing Dr. K, who for I think it was only like 6 months, but he was actually I think a Buddhist monk, and then he became a psychiatrist. And there's some of his stuff I don't agree with, but honestly, a lot of stuff he nails. He is a really intelligent guy. They're going to have discussion about Andrew Tate and why are all these guys suckered by a guy who's publicly admitted to the sex trafficking. He's admitted to defrauding men. He's admitted on YouTube. You can go and just do a search and look for it now. I don't give a shit about these guys. I don't give an F about them. Give all their money to me. He has said that publicly, and yet these guys defend him and still get suckered. I mean, they pay $5,000 or more for his war room and these other programs that are honestly maybe partially helping these guys, but in a lot of ways not. A lot of ways doing more harm than good too. So we're gonna watch the clip. Before we get into that, welcome to the show, Isosefi. I forgot your real name, but I know you, man. I just forgot your real name. P-Dubs Duarte, how you doing? So Cult of Personality in Living Color. So that is a phrase that's been around before the Living Color song, but there's a song from the 80s and the band is In Living Color. It actually has a really awesome crazy kind of anti-melodic, but really awesome guitar solo in it too. So it's a cool song. So, yeah, and then that's you, Jordan. So let's dive in, and then we'll just stop at appropriate times and comment. This actually ties back into toxic shame. The solution is you can give validation to yourself and then not be vulnerable. We'll get to that, but let's look at the clip first. Okay, here we go.
What do you think of Andrew Tateism then?
So as a general rule, I don't comment on people that I don't speak to.
Mm-hmm.
So tell me the features of what you're talking about.
Okay, so the recent wave of
I respect him answering that way. First,
masculine influencers who have like
what's that, Jordan?
I like that initial answer of let's be more specific about the question.
Yeah.
So I like it when people are not just
jumping on. Yeah.
And you do have to be aware of people who make blanket statements like, this is a problem with all women, this is a problem with all men, or what do you think? Oh, this guy's just a scumbag, just off the hook. So like I said earlier, I have done videos criticizing Tate, and I think I did one that actually said, you know what, he gave awesome advice there. So let's listen to this awesome advice, because the truth is people are a mix. Some people are, more toxic than helpful. I think as a whole, I actually think and Andrew Tate exhibits the signs of a sociopath. You guys can ask me later. I'll answer later the specific signs he has of sociopath. He absolutely, maybe he's not a sociopath, but he has all the signs, or at least many of the major ones.
I just like
people are complicated, so don't just across the board. Blanket statements are generally they're problematic, and that's what he's doing. He's like, I need more information. He is a nuance. He understands the nuance, which one of the reasons I like Dr. K.
And to be fair, I think the question was purposefully open-ended, so that's how you do it. So maybe it's
okay. Yeah, I'll rewind 5 seconds and we'll keep going.
Bugattis, internet, the recent wave of internet masculine influencers who have like Bugattis and lots of women and sports cars, and there's many of them, and they seem to be resonant for some kind of reason. That are kind of saying that the way to be a man is to have loads of money, lots of women, these kind of cars, physical strength, and there's just this huge sort of generation of young, typically men, that are now disciples of that religion.
Yeah. So I think if you dislike that toxic masculinity, what we need to understand is it's the people who hate that toxic masculinity that are driving these people towards it. So I know this is kind of crazy.
Isn't that interesting? Let's keep going. And he nails it. Wait a minute.
He
nails it so hard. He's so good at it.
The funny thing is it's, although he breaks it down nicely and obviously, that's exactly the way we act as human beings. Your parents say, don't look inside that closet. What are you dying to do? Look inside that closet.
Yeah.
Don't hang around little Joey. He's a bad boy. But I got to go around little Joey.
There's more layers than that, but that's definitely part of it.
Yeah.
Crazy. So what's happened is this has grown, right? And as it's grown, what have we done? We've demonized these people. We've said these people are bad. And as we demonize them, what's happened? They've grown stronger. So this is something that's very important to understand. If you are a man and you say, I am suffering today, what is the response that you're going to get?
Shut up.
Absolutely.
Not in those exact words, but that's whatever the words are, that's what they mean.
Now, I want us to be very, very careful, right? So if you are listening to Steven say people tell you to shut up, and your first thought as a listener is, no, that's not true, that's the problem. So
no, you're a white male. You're privileged. That's what they say.
That's right.
And they're wrong.
Or just male in general.
Or you're a man, you're toxic. The
Right.
American Psychological Association came out with a statement, not talking about toxic masculinity. It said traditional masculinity is harmful. So just normal masculinity, that's the American Psychological Association, a bunch of they're toxic. They're, but anyways, we'll keep going.
But if people agree with you, they understand what you're saying. But if they disagree with you, that's the problem. We literally have a man who is telling us right now that your experiences, when I say I'm suffering, people tell you to shut up. And then people are going to be judging you for saying that. And they're going to be saying, no, that's not true.
They're going to be saying, shut up.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Right. So this is exactly the problem.
I remember Tucker Carlson was, they were discussing men's issues, and he's like, why don't these men just shut up, stop complaining, and man up?
Yeah.
And that's what society does,
So men are struggling right now, and the rest of the world says, no, you're not.
Olivia Wilde as well. I think that's her name. She's this really good looking actress. She was in the Tron movie. And she made a movie recently starring Chris Pike, the Star Trek actor. And it was about incels. And she was interviewed, and she's just she sees incels feel entitled to our sex, and she just crapped all over them. And Jordan Peterson was interviewed about it. And because he was actually the villain was modeled after him in the movie. And he's like, he got emotional. He was like, I thought the disaffected were supposed to have a voice, but no, society takes these men who are hurting and struggling and demonizes them and craps all over them, just like Olivia. And shame on her, shame on her for doing that. That's horrible behavior, but that's what society does. And
So
it creates a group of vulnerable men who are ripe for exploitation. And this happens to other groups and classes. This is why feminism got popular, or there's a parallel there as well. But yeah, go ahead, Jordan.
Well, I often say, actually posted this on Twitter yesterday, was, just because somebody else had it worse doesn't mean you don't also have issues. Like, just stop complaining. It's like, that's a very dismissive response to people's issues.
Yeah.
It's first of all, it's not helpful to actually solve the problem, for one. I mean, and so if you can't just tell people, no, you don't have a problem. Like, give an example of that ever working, ever.
Yeah.
It never works, because the moment, he's exactly right. When somebody has a problem and you say, no, you don't have that problem, they are even more emboldened to hold on to that problem.
And whether they do it to your face or behind your back, they're going to give you the finger and say, F off, and I'm going to do my thing now.
So
Exactly.
we have, over the last number of generations, gaslighted ourselves into delusion.
Yeah.
When Jordan, for his example, if somebody comes up and says, here's my complaint, and somebody says, shut up, or shut it down, or act like a man, or man up, or whatever they're going to say, the problem with that is that is a measure of gaslighting, right?
And these men are shamed.
Yeah, you think you got it all, and this person's telling you they're hurting, and you tell them to suck it up. What does that even mean anyway? Suck it up. It means to shut up is what it means, right? So now
Go away.
you've got a person whose feelings are completely ignored and invalidated as though they're of no consequence whatsoever for anybody else in the world. So you want to start teaching people how not to belong to a group of people, or teach people how not to love themselves and that they have concern for themselves. I mean, that's where we're at, right? It's just constant gaslighting from movies, from the internet, from the news shows, whatever. It's just telling you you're crazy for thinking the way you do.
And then they shame these guys for being angry.
That's right.
But they should be angry because they are being mistreated.
They display that anger in a bad manner, but
Yeah.
they need to figure out how to show some righteous
do it
anger and
healthy.
get a response.
There you go. Yeah.
And are there times where you do have to suck it up? Sure. Like if you're climbing down a mountain and your legs are sore,
No doubt.
you're like, you know what? This sucks, but I gotta go through it anyway. There
Yeah.
are times where that's useful, but not all the time.
Yeah.
It's time to live at that point, and then you'll figure out what hurts.
Yeah. All right. Keep
Don't
going.
die.
You're privileged. You're a man. There's a patriarchy. And I'm not commenting on the sociology of it. There is a patriarchy, whatever. Men have many advantages in life. I've experienced many advantages of being a man. It's absolutely true. Let's not go there. I'm talking about the individual experience of men. So there is one group of people on the planet who says, yes, your life does suck. And that's these toxic masculine people. They're the only people that truly validate men's experiences. Because everyone else says, why are you complaining?
True. It's one of a very few.
But he's
And-
talking about these men right now.
Not all the men's groups who say this are toxic.
Correct.
You know, John MLD's Men's Empowerment Network. I've been in that, and there's these guys are finding purpose, and they're up leveling, and they're actually getting a lot of positive benefit. He's launching it again, by the way.
So
shout out to him.
I'll modify Dr. K's statement slightly. Andrew Tate might be the only guy that they are exposed to that admits, yes, you are struggling. So maybe not the only one that they end up hearing. They might not hear any other, because I think there's plenty of other people saying it. But since he's so popular, and he might be the only one on their radar.
And so loud, and lots of girls, like that's the major success.
Right.
Yeah, and why does that appeal? Because guys are like, I feel like a completely invisible, unimportant, society disdains me because I am a loser. It's toxic shame. I feel like crap. This feels horrible. Oh man, look at this guy with this Bugatti. Man, if I had a Bugatti and all these girls, I wouldn't be a loser. I would be good enough. And here's this guy saying he understands my pain. Maybe he can help me out. That's really the core. That's why these guys are vulnerable. Is everyone else is literally saying you don't matter. We don't, just do what we tell you, and shame on you for deviating from, the script, what we think is acceptable, and shame on you for being a loser.
Now,
and no, you can't complain at all. You're privileged. And then they wonder why these guys are vulnerable to people who are ultimately, and there is some good that Andrew Tate does, but ultimately vulnerable to people who are predatory. We're talking about the Nexium cult. That's there's a series on Showtime. Keith Rainier just sentenced to how many years of prison because he ran a sex cult inside of his organization, and it's a program. Women were vulnerable.
Yep. It was a self-help program.
Yeah.
And the whole thing was a series of gaslighting to get you involved. And he was always going after people with money.
Yeah.
So for him, it wasn't about the sex. It was about control and getting the money.
Yeah. So P-dubs, they say suck it up because they don't know how to help.
That's
you
true
guys
too.
help. They don't know how to help, so they say suck it up. Yeah, Andrew Tate, he says depression isn't real. Ignore your feelings. Just, chase power. And I mean, he gives a lot of horrible advice. Some of it is good, but ultimately he's exploitative.
I think even his depression isn't real thing. It's just misguided. It's not. I don't even think it's.
Well,
it demonstrates a lack of understanding of the subject. I don't think he means it to be.
It's because he's a sociopath. The sociopaths disconnect from at least partially shut down all their emotions except anger.
So why would he
say
that?
With that stuff?
He would say that because he's telling you depression isn't a thing. Give me your money. I'll show you how to be successful. Depression isn't real. Suck it up. Come on over here. Pay your money. Work hard.
I'll give you the solution.
It's not working for me. Well, work harder. Right.
Yeah.
So that's why he would say that. He's shaming you in to joining his world.
That's true. Okay, we'll keep going.
And these guys say, yeah, you're a fucking loser. What are you going to do about it? They at least meet you where you're at. And they say, yes, your life is hard, and I will show you a way to make it better. Whereas the rest of the world says, no, your life isn't hard. What are you complaining about? And I've seen this as a doctor. I've seen patients who are complaining about pain, women who are complaining about pain because they have an internal bleed within the wall of their uterus that cannot get detected. And they're saying, I'm hurting, I'm hurting, I'm hurting. And we ignore this person's pain. And that's when things go bad.
And that's why Hitler came into power, because the rest of the world crapped all over Germany and put these, enormous reparations, where Germany had to pay the countries it went to war against in World War I, enormous reparations Germany could never pay off. And then Germany had hyperinflation to try and, get the money to pay it off and destroy the economy. And these people who are hated by the rest of the world become like these dudes. And then Hitler comes along and he's like, I understand your pain because I'm German too. I mean, what was his book? Mein Kampf, my struggle. I am one of you. I've struggled just like you, but guess what? I'm going to save you. And that's why those people embraced Hitler. It's the same concept.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we'll keep going. Or you have anything, Jordan?
I thought
Okay.
Mein Kampf was my plan, but is it my struggle?
My struggle, Mein Kampf.
Is it?
Yep.
For years and years and years, we have ignored the struggles of men. And there's one group on the planet who accepts them with open arms. And the more that we demonize them, so when someone starts believing in this toxic masculinity, what is the response? Do people ever ask, like, help me understand what your life is like? Like, what do you like about this person? Because everyone's going to them for a reason, but we never bother to ask, why are you listening to this person? What does this mean to you? We see these posts all the time in our community. My boyfriend is getting into this stuff. My son is getting this stuff. How do I stop it? Hold on a second. Don't try to stop it. Understand it first. Because everyone's trying to stop it and no one is bothering to listen to what the experience of these men are. And that's why it's getting worse and worse and worse as we try to stop it.
So if I'm the mother of a son who is watching a lot of these sort of toxic male influences online, what would be a better approach versus just banning the community?
Yeah.
So my one criticism of both of them is they haven't really defined what about that is toxic. We have talked about it, like the three of us, but the two of them haven't really defined. That's my own.
Why is the Tate thing toxic?
Yeah, they haven't really defined what that. They're just sort of implying that it's toxic on its face rather than defining what specifically about it is toxic. And so I think
the context of what they're talking about is how to keep people away from it, how to keep people out of it, or how to not let it grow bigger than it is right now.
And why should they stay out of it?
That's why he said, rather than trying to stop your son or your husband or whatever getting into this thing, understand why they're getting into it. He didn't finish the whole statement because Stephen interrupted him, but it's why are they going there? He's not even talking about what we're talking about, but why are they going there?
But my concern is that they might be walking by not defining what's toxic. I'm concerned that they're walking down the same path that they're describing, which is, why are these men going down this toxic route? Well, because the guys who go down that route don't think it's toxic.
Yeah, 100%. And in fact, I think some of it isn't toxic. I think some is, and some is not.
Yep.
Because our society wants men to serve society. And if you deviate from that script, they'll call you toxic, even if you're not, even if you're just doing your own thing and not hurting anyone. But you no longer subscribe to the mainstream. It's like the woke culture. Oh, you don't toe the party line 100%. You're misogynist, you're homophobe, you're transphobe, and then they just start and they will actually do this to their own people who don't completely agree with them, even though their own people kind of largely agree, but they squabble. You see these Christian sects, they're all Christian, right? Why are they fighting amongst each other? Because they squabble over the little things, because, well, you're not, this point of doctrine's wrong, this point of doctrine's wrong. So they'll fight each other, even though they're all Christian. It's kind of ridiculous.
So remember, this is a 10 or 11 minute clip out of an hour and a half show.
Yeah, true. 100%.
So they do talk about a lot of other things, because I think I think the name of the show is There's a Crisis Going On with Men. We've produced a lot of lonely, addicted males. That's sort of what they're going after. So this is just a snippet out of that.
Yeah. One thing I'll say is society wants men to become successful and then marry women and raise families and pay their taxes and then buy all the corporate products.
That's right.
And then they want those men's ideology to conform to what society thinks is appropriate. And these men are embracing different ideologies. Oh, okay, I'm going to work my butt off and I'm going to get, a Bugatti. I'm going to get millions of dollars and I'm going to have a harem of 20 hot girls and I'm just going to have sex with them all the time and travel the world and be a playboy. And that's what these guys are aiming for. I mean, that Tate takes in. I think what society doesn't like is that doesn't serve society at all. Like passport bros. I'm a passport bro. And I used to have a Porsche, by the way. So, I got the hot car, right? But one thing I will say is that it's true. Society does not care. They just don't care about men. Really, society only cares about society. Society doesn't care about women either.
Right. Correct.
And so what I say is the problem with these guys is a lot of them are misogynistic. A lot of them do have rage towards society. And, in very extreme examples could be school shooters or, again, most of them, the vast majority would never do that. But, that's an extreme example. They're definitely not serving what society wants. But society has treated them like crap. And I honestly think you should not do what society says if society's treating you that way. But if you get your internal world healthy, you'll go after what you want, but it will be healthy things. So if you have toxicity inside of you, there's gonna be a lot of toxic. There will be misogyny or other negative behaviors, and which can be very problematic for everyone.
It's sort of funny. Is their ultimate goal is the breakdown of the family or a functional family unit.
Society broke it first.
Right. So it's sort of funny is if they break the family unit, they're not going to have more family units down the line. So eventually it's going to wear itself out, right? It's just going to fizzle out.
Well, society's headed for demographic collapse because we're having less kids than we need to keep the population stable. Population shrinking
worldwide.
China has a massive problem.
Even India, the U.S., everybody's down below a couple having less than 2 people offspring.
Yeah, Mexico's at 2.1. So Mexico has
just about there.
2.1 children per woman. Yep. That's enough to sustain the population.
Correct.
I think South Korea is at 0.7. Like in 40 years, South Korea will be a ghost town.
Yes.
I mean, the population will be half of what it is now because of that. China, I think their replacement
1.87 or something.
No, it's 1.3 per woman.
Enough. It's below 2.
Yeah, they're gonna 40 years from now, they're gonna be a quarter less. Instead of 1 billion, it'll be 750 million. And most of the people are going to be these elderly people, and there's not enough younger generation to take care of them as they get decrepit and age out.
Yep.
So yeah, it's a big problem, but it's a problem society created and perpetuates. So I'm not going to put myself on society's sacrificial altar, and have society who doesn't care about me take these risks, So yeah, I mean, but it is a problem, and it's a very unfortunate problem. But definitely, you don't want to take the all women are bad and I'm super busy because they're not, and I'm super bitter now and I'm black pill and I'm doom and gloom and or I'm red pill, but I'm toxic red pill. And I'm angry at the world and I'm angry at women. And I'm just going to, the problem is you end up, let's say you succeed and you end up getting the Bugatti, but you got all this toxic trauma in you. What are you going to be like? Well, you're going to be like Kurt Cobain, Marilyn Monroe, Robin Williams, these incredibly successful people. They all self-deleted. Or you don't self-delete, but you're incredibly miserable. You thought this stuff was going to solve. You got all the wealth, and yet you're still like incredibly miserable
Yep.
because
Although
of the toxic shame that originally came from the society that didn't care about you, but it's in your subconscious now. And all this outer stuff these guys are chasing after is not going to fix their issues. It won't. Go ahead, Jordan.
Yeah, I have a lot of thoughts there. Again, I think it's very important that I think part of the problem of that guys get frustrated off of is if you just say everything is toxic, the definitions matter a lot. And even again, I go back to what I said before. Him just assuming that everything about Andrew Tate is misogynistic or toxic is part of the problem.
Yeah,
So
he's not
Dr.
all bad. He has good stuff.
I wish Dr. K. But Dr. K has been very good about identifying the problem of He identifies that people, they are saying you don't have a problem, and they're being shoved farther into somebody else saying, yes, you do have a problem, and let me help you fix it. But he is unconscious. He is committing the same issue in saying that they're being pushed into something that's toxic because he's not defining what's toxic, and that's like the lack of self-awareness in what he's doing is my problem with how he's describing it.
Again,
So even
it's a step.
I'll say what's toxic if you want me to say.
Well, I know we say it, but I know that we've been
calling
talking
women
about it.
bitches and calling everyone a loser who isn't successful, and calling them pieces of crap. That's pretty toxic. And a lot of these guys, end up having low level hate for women. Not all, a lot of them, there are absolutely dangerous women out there, but there's also good women. A lot of these guys don't believe those good women exist.
Remember that Dr. K in this clip is resisting talking about Andrew Tate specifically.
True.
But he's talking about why people would be attracted to that.
Why people are vulnerable.
And if people are attracted to that, what you need to do or not do to keep them driving towards it. So we're not even getting to what in this clip, what toxic masculinity is or how to solve it. We're just talking about why are people attracted to it.
And the thing is Andrew Tate is exploiting these men. He has
absolutely
he's been interviewed, and with his online business with these webcam girls, he has talked about how some guys who were rich got a huge crush or fell in love with these webcam girls who were just he would be the one typing responses to him, and the girls would just smile and laugh and giggle. And the guy thinks the girl's talking to him when it's Tate. He's already admitted to this. And Tate has used these guys who fell in love with these women to say, oh, I'm going to meet you. Let's meet in real life. And never do. Or he did once, but, he only did it once where he let a guy meet one of his girls in real life and then never did it again.
Right.
And he holds out that carrot and has milked some of these guys for over $1 million.
Mm-hmm.
And then he was asked publicly, don't you feel a little guilty about taking this away? Lying to the guys because you're typing, you're communicating with the guys. The guys think it's the girl that's typing back to him and is that he's fallen in love with, but it's you. And then you sucker them into giving you over $1 million, making all these promises like you're the girl and you're going to be together and hey, I'm going to quit this and I'll be your wife and everything. And he's just lying and milking these guys for like some of them over $1 million. And he's like, I don't give a F about these guys. All the money for me. These guys are losers. And do you think then with like his Hustlers University that all of a sudden he cares about these guys? No. And honestly, Hustlers University has some or I guess it's real world now. Is that right, Jordan? Do you know? I think it's called Real World.
I don't know.
He charges $50 a month. I think the price has gone up, and it's training guys how to do like independent remote work. And the training's there, but honestly, I've seen several guys who have taken this program. It's inadequate. It doesn't give you enough information to actually have a career. Some guy's going to figure it out. It's a good launching point, but he makes all these promises that 99% of the guys who take his courses are not going to realize. They're just not. So, but he's making, I think at one point he's making $9 million a month. I don't know how much he's making now, but that's $100 million a year. He had 50,000.
I don't think I could do that. And then
why? Because you have a conscience?
He's holding out false promises.
Like
hey, this is how you get the Bugatti. Pay me $50 a month. Join me. But the thing is it's not going to help those guys get rich. There's a small number.
I don't know if I would make it. I don't know if I'd go so far as making that illegal, but I definitely find it kind of maybe immoral. I don't know. It seems very immoral.
Well, his business is not illegal. The main one, the real world, where people sign up and they learn how to do copywriting or some other career, and it has some good information. It's just inadequate. Go ahead.
Yeah, and because part of me also thinks these guys who are that desperate, it's like, well, if it's not Tate, they'll go find it somewhere else. And I understand.
There's predators everywhere.
Yeah, and it's like, does that mean that you have to be the one that I don't have to participate in it? I also understand that if those guys aren't going to get their fix from Tate, they'll go find somewhere else to get it.
They will.
So is it it doesn't solve just telling people not to do that doesn't solve the problem, but I don't know. I don't think I could. I don't know. I would like to think that my business creates a net positive for those for people.
Yours does, man. We're not doing what Tate does. We don't say stuff that we don't hang out false hope in front of people.
Yeah. And that's
why it's exploitative.
Dr. K in this episode here is talking more about why people are attracted to it than what it is about.
Yeah, exactly.
It could be Charles Manson, that Jones guy that took everybody to Guyana. It could be, the
Nexium dude,
this
Hitler.
Keith Raniere guy.
Keith Raniere.
Yeah, Amway. It could be Amway. It could be Herbalife. It could be whatever cult world you want to get into. And I'm not saying multi-level marketing is a cult, but they've got.
I hope you don't get. Yeah, cover your ass.
They've got a bit of a. Hang on. They have a bit of a cult culture.
True.
Right. Because they're suck it up, cheer. This is the only way to make $1 million, all this kind of stuff. And nobody ever really makes it. They all just they make a little bit of cash here and there, but nobody's getting wealthy. So it's key that we focus on, like Carrie, for example. She wanted to do every multi-level marketing come along because it was a ready set up business. I fear now she might be the Tupperware queen of the world if it started 40 years ago. Right. Yeah. But now, she's got her own thing going. She don't need anybody else tell her what to do. She's got her own. She's got me. I'm the cult follower.
Yeah.
But this guy is talking about what to do when people say, hey, I'm thinking about joining Andrew Tate's group. Oh, instead of, no, he's toxic, it would be, well, why would you want to do that? What is it about your life that solves? I mean, that requires some introspective thinking, first of all.
Yeah.
To understand what could possibly be going on. And I would say 98% of the people out there aren't rigged to even understand what's going on.
Yeah, 100%.
Which is why we say, suck it up.
Another thing I thought of is, well, if you just tell men that they're toxic and they're toxic and they're toxic, there could also be an element of, well, if Andrew Tate's also toxic and I'm toxic, well, I guess we go together.
Through society, we'll be toxic together. We're right. He's wrong. Now you're in a cult. Us versus them. I get my sense of belonging here. These guys get me. They validate me. This is my group. This is my tribe. And all the other tribes are bad. So I'm MGTOW now and screw you dudes. And I'm just gonna, I'm gonna, make, get all this success. And then I'm gonna, bang 20 girls. And then I'm gonna, 20 different girls. And I'm gonna have 10 different kids. Tate has like 10, 12 kids with several different women. you know, and now you created a bunch of single moms who the red pill then craps on single moms, you know, that that if you follow Tate's advice, you'll probably end up creating, if you're successful, you probably won't be because he's holding out false hope, but it's a mess. It's a mess. And the truth is, women and men should be together and create stable, happy, loving families. As far as society goes, that will create a healthy society. I don't think every guy should do that. I think there's others, so but the vast bulk of men, that's going to be a great fit for them. Unfortunately, that whole family dynamic, because of our toxic society is sick and toxic. It really makes it difficult to do that in a healthy way. For the majority of people, and society is actually as a whole a bigger problem than Andrew Tate. They really are.
Absolutely.
So, unfortunately, very, very unfortunately, Rollo Tomasi talks about how, the family is the most stable way to create emotionally healthy children who become great adults. But look at, why are these guys disaffected? Because they didn't grow up in a good family. They were raised by a single parent, probably the mom. They didn't show him how to be a man, and now he's struggling. And didn't get the love and validation he needed as a kid, these guys. So they have all this toxic shame. I'm ignored by society. I'm unimportant. I'm worthless. And no one cares about me. And then along comes a savior. I get you, and here's your salvation. Get a Bugatti. And so when these vulnerabilities are created, you have this vulnerable class. And unfortunately, almost all of them are false messiahs. But the healthy solution is heal your trauma, learn to believe, unconditionally love yourself, believe in your ability and value. And then when you're psychologically healthy, you're just naturally going to do healthy stuff. And I know from experience, being this super depressed guy, healed it. And now I'm healing others. When you love yourself, your love just spills out to the world, and you have just a natural desire to go out, get what you want, and help others and learn and grow in the process. And then it's all positive. Now, even though society does a lot of great things, we have laws that protect people and roads and all this organization that allows civilization. You're going to live within it productively once you're healthy, because that's what healthy people do. That's the solution. Society.
So back to the clip.
Yeah. Okay. Here we go.
Yeah.
Computer and telling them that that's toxic and not to look at it.
Help me understand what you like about this. What is it like to be a man in today's day and age? How do you feel about yourself? How does it feel knowing that 70 to 80% of women want you to make more money than them, and yet 60% of people who graduate from college are women? So men are living in a world.
And they also complain that men make more. So it's like, shame on you for making more, but we're not going to want you unless you do.
Today where there are impossible expectations to meet. And so, what is it like to be someone who fundamentally has no chance at success? Right? These are the kinds of things that you need to say to these people. You need to give them an alternate place to go where they can be heard and helped, supported, and understood. See, anytime we make a judgment, our mind already has a conclusion. There's nothing left to learn anytime we're judgmental. So what do we do to all these people who are toxic men? We even create the word toxic. We literally label them as bad in some way. And I'm not saying that the behavior isn't toxic. But what I'm trying to point out is that even in our language, there is so much harsh judgment. So I once had a patient.
We both just did it, didn't we?
Absolutely.
Yep.
So I once had a patient who was smearing.
10 minutes ago.
So there's a number of assumptions that are wrong that he says, although they're good questions. He assumes that you have to graduate from college to make good money.
True.
Right. I mean,
it's actually,
but it's not evident.
Yeah.
Well,
there's actually a labor shortage in certain blue collar industries, and so there's certain blue collar workers that are making more and more money, even in six figures.
Yep. Go Mike Rowe.
And it's stuff that women either can't or don't want to do, such as lineman work. Yeah, could a woman be a lineman, work on the electrical lines?
They do.
Yeah, absolutely they could. How many women are doing it? Well, they
Not many.
choose not to because it's hard. It's physically hard and they're physically weaker. I'm sorry. Those are just straight up facts. That's just reality. That's just how it is, you know? So now you have a labor shortage. And then you have all these guys quitting the job market. There's a lot of guys not working now. They stay in their mom's basement. So you now have a labor shortage. Well, guess what? You're getting paid more for that stuff now.
By the way, this is very the thing he just said about we made up this word toxic. We've now given them an identity, and we know what happens when that's your identity, right? We're not talking about the actions. We're not talking about the efforts. We're not talking about what effort they're not making or could make or whatever. We're talking about them as you are toxic.
And no wonder they find another tribe.
That's right. Because
Society
my tribe doesn't like me.
Yep. Society rejects them and simultaneously shames them for not doing what society wants them to do. But it's like, you rejected us.
That's it.
So does Tate have big problems? Yeah. Society has worse problems. Society created the vulnerability that made these guys vulnerable to going to someone who holds out false hope. Well, at least that guy is validating them and says he understands. Anything, Jordan?
Yeah, I think some of the people, and not all the people who follow Tate, they might be passive followers. They might not even.
Yeah, there's a lot of good guys follow him.
I mean, they might just, and they might be, some of them might be intelligent enough to be able to filter what they like and what they don't like. I mean, they don't have to buy into everything. Not every Tate follower is created equal. So,
yeah, and Andrew Tate, by the way, he has this 100-part series, like 100 short lessons on how to be a hustler in the business world. And I watched, 20 of them. And honestly, it had a lot of brilliant advice for certain types of businesses, not all. Coupled with just a complete lack of ethics or morality. But a lot of his advice actually was really good. So...
Well, that's the thing is like if there's got to be some value in it, otherwise there wouldn't be any
at least perceived value. Perceived value.
Yeah, and I think some real value too. I mean, but they're getting something out of it. What are they getting out of it? There's not. You have to ask why it's attractive versus it's all bad.
100%.
The solution is, however, society's not going to change. We can't make society change, but we can go in and heal our trauma and give our validation to ourselves and then go after what we want because we believe in our ability and value and that we matter. All this stuff society has taken away because society's sick. You can fix by going inward, fixing yourself, and then just living a good life. The life you really want, but it'll be a good life.
Thank you.
They some good comments. They say suck it up because they don't know how to help like you guys help. 100%. I agree 100%. They don't have a solution.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at the questions that Dr. K just asked, how many parents are equipped to ask those questions? They're not hard questions, but they were very thoughtful questions.
Yeah.
How many people, even just parents? I mean, beyond I don't think I've ever. I'm trying to think because I've talked with some other people in my life about some of these ideas, and typically, I have to be careful, and let me get my thoughts together. So when I'm trying to explain certain ideas that I'm interested in, I try and explain rather than I wouldn't talk. If I liked Tate, for example, and I was trying to change someone's mind about it, the first thing I would do is talk about specific ideas rather than the person.
Yep.
Because it's when you say I am red pill, I am libertarian, I am whatever model of that thing they have in their head, they automatically apply to you. And so now you get in this box.
Yep.
And so
Yeah,
I
you're being
I
labeled,
try and
yeah.
be careful not to use labels. Instead, I try and go with the specific ideas of those things until I've communicated with that person for more than a while. Then I might simplify it. But that's why
kind of what Dr. K did. I'm not going to comment on a person that I haven't talked to in person, don't personally know,
Yeah.
Because everything's hearsay.
Yeah. So,
we can keep going on the clip.
Isis Effie, damn, you woke me up about Andrew Tate. Yeah, you're very welcome. So any of you guys who are thinking, well, he's actually a really good guy. He's not a sociopath. He's not a criminal. So he has admitted to crimes all over the internet. It's on YouTube. He talks about defrauding guys. He talks about using Bitcoin to evade taxes. He talks about controlling these women, which and making them fall in love with him, and then all these manipulations to get them to then do sex work for him, or even just webcamming and stripping. That actually technically makes it a sex crime, sex trafficking. If you want to see the evidence, probably the best source is there's a YouTube channel, CLR Bruce Rivers. He is a board certified criminal defense attorney, and just anything he does on Tate, he actually shows you the clips, the evidence. He shows you evidence gathered by these court filings in Romania against him. They raided his house. They seized his phones. They have WhatsApp conversations and other conversations where he says all the guys that follow him are losers and they'll never be successful, and how he defrauds people and how he's doing all sorts of legal stuff. But you can even just go on YouTube and again, CLR Bruce Rivers, he shows the YouTube clips where Andrew's admitting all this stuff, but it's all over the internet. It's out there.
It's not
so
even if it's even beyond the legality stuff. It's like the trying to get guys to pour out all their money into just for some girl and making fake promises. Even if it's not illegal, I still have a problem with it. So it doesn't, legal or not, there's still behavior that is.
It is fraud because he conned them. Like he's pretending to be the woman saying, I'm in love with you and everything, and let's run off together.
I don't have a problem as much
fraud.
with that specifically, because I think that's pretty common in the webcam girl industry. I think that's almost like the standard is well,
if it happens like that, then it's fraud because you're making number one, you're not the girl, you're the guy writing, pretending to be the girl. So there's deception there. Number two, you're saying, let's run off together. Let's get married. I'll be your girlfriend. And you never intend to fulfill that. You're just doing that to make them give you money. That is fraud. It's using deception to take that person's money. That is the textbook definition of what fraud is. It's a
catfish.
Well, yeah, catfish is a form of fraud too. Yep. Look, I'm this super hot girl. I'm sending you all these pictures being this super hot girl, but it's some 300-pound woman that just wants validation, and she's
or some dude sitting in a Nigerian social club on his laptop.
Yeah, it's all fraud. That's fraud. You are misrepresenting yourself to get money or something else that, and it hurts that person because even that if that person is just giving you attention, he's giving attention to something that is false, that is deception, and so you're robbing him of resources, his time and his energy.
And if we represented that we're going to get through this 11-minute clip in an hour show, we better get back to it.
Yeah, true.
We never promised that.
So. Yeah, we never promised it. We're not defrauding you.
That's all over the school. So adolescent kid, right? And when you have a kid who's literally taking a shit and wiping it on the walls and stuff, what happens? The kid gets punished. Kid gets punished again and again and again. The one really sad thing is no one ever asks, why are you doing this? What's going on inside you? Because healthy kids don't do this. It's only kids who've been traumatized in some way. And as I've worked with incels, as I've worked with people who are toxically masculine, it always starts with trauma. And when I say always, this is a clinical experience, but I'm talking about 100%. So 100% of people start on this path by getting hurt in some way, by getting taken advantage of in some way, by sacrificing something and not getting something in return. And they have their share of responsibility too. I'm not saying that they're hapless victims, but I think that people who are raised with love and compassion and do have connections don't go down this road.
You're so passionate about this, aren't you? Because
he just said the most important part of the show, by the way, just so you know.
Well, it's internal
heal
belief
your-
systems
if you
right
haven't
there.
had good parents, you got to heal your core, heal that trauma, and then you won't be vulnerable to these type of people because you no longer have that vulnerability that can be exploited.
Yep.
Right.
Quick comment if you have one, and then we'll keep going. We're
Well,
gonna get
internal beliefs. You just described it.
Yep. And that's why what we say is the solution is the solution. Heal your trauma.
And
You just said it. Keep going.
That's
Go ahead.
largely, but I think that's largely true. It's like if you believe you're good enough at your core, you're much like you by definition, you're not vulnerable to external validation. That's why I think it's harder to rally like people who are generally like this is more like limited government things because they think for themselves and they don't, by definition, they don't require external validation. If you can just dangle the carrot of gender, sexuality, climate, COVID, whatever external validation you're dangling, you can control those people a lot easier because you are the external, but you are the supplier of external validation. The moment you can give it to yourself, it's way harder to control you from no matter who it is, whether it's Tate, whether it's whoever
Anybody.
it is.
You are
Anybody.
absolutely nailing it.
Way
Psychological predators. Look for vulnerable people. Everyone needs validation. Everyone wants to feel good enough, wants to feel loved. And these psychological predators know that, and they will drip feed it to you and get you hooked on the drug that you can give yourself, but you don't know how to. That's why people don't. They have no idea how to do it. And so so they need it from an outside source, and that makes them vulnerable to these predators who give them that validation and get you hooked. It's like a drug to you, and then you get sucked into all this crap. Yeah. Okay, we'll keep going.
Feel like your eyes have seen in your practice some pretty heartbreaking things.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like, see, unless we are willing to be what these people need, they're going to continue going down the toxic masculinity route. Someone needs to start offering these people safe haven, no matter what they say, or not no matter. I think there should be consequences for actions, but so this is as someone who's worked in a jail, right? So, and this is what's kind of interesting if you really think about it. People will judge me for talking to or even trying to support people who are toxically masculine. And they're like, oh my God, you're such an asshole. You're giving these people a platform. How could you make the world a worse place? And then I tell them I worked in a jail for 3 months. And they're like, oh, look at you. You're so compassionate. You're working with these people who are like criminals. And like, oh my God, I don't think they realize that anyone you see on social media is 10 times better than the people that I worked with in jail. These are people who are actual pedophiles, actual rapists, right? Not just talking about it. Maybe the people on social media are too. I don't know. And so it's really interesting the way that our mind automatically judges things. And so if we really want to fix this problem, and I think we need to fix this problem, it's just my take. I mean, I'm not I'm a big fan of like compassion and trying to support other human beings. I'm not saying that that's always the right answer. I think sometimes you may need things like war or violence or whatever. I mean, there may be causes for it. But generally speaking, I think that like demonizing these people isn't working.
Is there anything else that we haven't covered in the remedies to this sort of male crisis? We've talked about getting more in touch with yourselves. Is there anything else? Do we need more?
By the way, a lot of people in society who shame these men are actually projecting. They actually have trauma in them, and they have to talk trash and focus on all the evil in the world because it distracts them from the fact that they don't feel good enough. So they want to blame everyone around them why their life sucks. And so that's this woke culture crapping on everyone. Oh, you're misogynist, you're homophobe, and oh, the world's so bad and evil. And look, the left is at the right's throat and the right's at the left's throat. It's you're doing it because you don't feel good about yourself deep down, and that's so painful. You need to shift that blame outward and focus on the outside world, and you have all this negative projection. We'll keep going.
Positive role models, or is it really not about the external at all?
No, I mean, so I think all that stuff is true. So we know that, for example, like there's like a loneliness crisis and things like that. I think that it's not just role models, like we need individual responsibility. So like, for example, everyone will say, yeah, like I know it's a real tragedy that men don't have friends, but it's not my job to fix. I will hear this from both men and women, that like it's a real tragedy, but it's not my responsibility. It's sad that this thing happened, but it's not my, and which makes sense, right? No human being is responsible for another human being. But then the question kind of becomes like, okay, let's play that tape through to the end. What happens to that person? Whose responsibility is it? So if you look at a lot of what's going on with men right now, it's loneliness, it's isolation, it's touch starvation, it's suicidality,
Sexlessness as well.
sexlessness, and it's no individual person's responsibility. But the real problem with this is that these are not problems that men can solve on their own. This is exactly why this is the problem that men are experiencing. Because as men, we are taught to be independent. We are taught to be, you should fix everything on your own. And so men have fixed.
You can actually fix a tremendous amount of stuff on your own, but you still, at the end of the day, we're social creatures. You do need to find a tribe of good people. So you ultimately need that, but all by yourself, you can fix your trauma with, not everyone, but with proper training, you're going to need outside instruction, at least, bare minimum. But with self-hypnosis, you can actually go in and fix a lot of your trauma. But like I said, we still need tribes because we are social creatures. I wanted to draw that distinction.
If you don't know, like if you don't
You need
know
someone
how
to
to fix
teach you,
yourself,
but then you go in and heal yourself with the knowledge you learned from the other person. Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
You need to learn from other people the things you like. You can't fix you're ultimately the one doing the work on yourself, but you still need other people as resources to learn from.
True. That's
and
true.
if you don't know where to get those resources, or if you're shamed for even seeking out those resources, then it's going to obviously delay your progress. You're not gonna change for the better.
Yeah, 100%.
Yep.
It's kind of a nuance. It's like with what we do, we do hypnosis for others, but we teach I fix 95% of my trauma with self-hypnosis, listening to an audio. So, but that was a program given to me by someone who then taught me what to do. And so there's some nuance there. We fix ourselves, but someone has to show us. And then even after you fix yourself, you just don't want to be totally isolated all the time. We are social creatures. You do want to go out and have meaningful connections.
Hey, I can fix a lot of things on my car, but I still need YouTube to show me how.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, 100%.
All of the things that we can fix on our own. The only thing that's left is the things that we must rely on other people for, right? So no one's complaining about, a lot of men are obese, but there's not like an obesity. There is a crisis, but that's not what's bothering people. That's not where we're losing the war. We're not losing the war on baldness, right? So there are lots of things as a man that you can fix in your own life. It's just the real challenge is that no one is willing to take responsibility for any level of connection with men. And so that's not something that is going to get fixed, because you need another human being to hug you. Like, you can't hug yourself. It just doesn't work. So my area of focus tends to be on introspection, because I think that's like really, really powerful, but there's all kinds of other stuff that's important. Mentorship, role models, all that kind of stuff. But
I do agree with that.
Yep.
I think ultimately through introspection, you can attain complete peace, no matter who you are, what your path is, circumstances. I think it's kind of like the silver bullet, which is what the Buddha discovered.
So are you saying there that as a society, we should take on more of the responsibility for some of these big fundamental issues that men and people in crisis can't solve for themselves?
Subtly, no. Not a society. Because as a society, who's part? No. I mean you. I mean, your listeners as individuals need to take responsibility. And it's not that you have to take responsibility. It's not fair to you to be responsible for someone else. But unless everyone who is listening to this podcast goes out and literally hugs a man, no one else is going to do it. Because if you don't do it, who's going to do it? You can't rely on society. We've been relying on society to fix the problem. It's not working. Society can't do shit.
So you're saying me? Forget
yes.
society. Don't wait for government to have some kind of intervention.
How's it working out?
Not great.
Okay, so that's it. I will say you can fix yourself and then be the guy who goes out and finds people to connect to and then hug. And that's as a guy who's been very, gamma male turned to sigma, I guess, if you want to use very broad stroke labels. I mean, that's me, very isolated, lonely guy, former incel, all that stuff, who healed his inner world and now has plenty of connection with men and women, great relationships. You heal your inner world, and then you're going to find those people if you go out and go for it. But man,
look,
you got to heal your inner world.
How about just set the bar even lower? Just don't shame them for wanting to make them for their struggles. Like, you don't have to give them a hug if you don't want to, but just how about just like be understanding, be empathetic instead of just the default being shame.
Yeah, I agree.
It's too easy to ask. It's too easy, taught too easily, exercised too easily, and very hard to stop. But yeah, you're right, Jordan. You need to stop.
And that's where Tate gets it wrong. He's like, I understand you, but at the same time, he's like, these people are losers and this and that. And so like the other tribe, like the tribe of feminism or woke or whatever, he's crapping all over them. He's like, well, yeah, you guys suck, but I'm going to help you guys out. But then he craps over other people. And it's like, you know what? Woke culture. Why are they so freaking toxic? Well, because they're a bunch of wounded people.
Yep.
So let's figure out where they're coming from. And, so that,
California.
California. But it's like, okay, why are they so adamant about defending trans people? And it's like, well, look at trans people. Trans people are like, in many ways, like these disaffected young men. They're judged by, look at this weirdo, look at this freak, this trans person. Look at, what a freak of nature. Yeah, there's a lot of people in society that looks at them and shames them and marginalizes them. And so they find their tribe and they're like, I belong to this tribe. We have now. And so the woke movement is like, you need to love these people. You need to accept these people because they are human beings. Unfortunately, they're not healing their trauma. So what do? It's like, well, they accept the trans and, the victimized women and LGBTQIA plus and accept all them. But they still crap on everyone who's not them.
Yep.
Because they haven't healed their trauma. And if you got trauma, you got this negative energy in you and it has to go somewhere. So, okay. Right. But they are just they just want to be validated, loved, and accepted. They want to feel good enough. And that's why they're woke. They're attempting to do that, but they're not fixing their trauma. So it's a shit show.
Yep.
So if
you don't know what to believe,
no matter what, they have their core base desires are good, but because they're not healing their trauma, it is a toxic shit show, and it will be until it's healed.
Correct.
It is what it is. And the same thing with Tate and many of black pillars and whatnot. They just want love, validation, acceptance, but until they heal that trauma, they're going to be toxic AF.
Yes, they are.
We all want to feel like we belong and that we're good enough. That's the driving base desire for so much of our behavior.
Yeah, and that's where compassion, understanding comes in.
One of the subconscious traumas that we help people clear is not belonging. So even though you have to validate yourself deep down and know that you're good enough and you're worth it, you still got to belong to a crowd.
Yeah.
Yourself first, but you got to belong to the crowd.
Yeah, my subconscious optimization system, which is, the paid self-hypnosis and mind coaching product, it talks about finding your tribe, finding your mentor. You heal yourself, but you still need that. So heal your trauma, and you won't be sucked in by the toxic people of the world, whether it's Tate or any of the other, Keith Rainier or any of the other many, many toxic groups that are trying to exploit your vulnerability caused by the fact that you don't know you have trauma and you don't feel validated and you don't feel loved and you don't feel good enough. Heal that, and then you will not be vulnerable to these, cults of personality. So that's all I had. You guys have any final words?
Nope, that'll do it.
All right.
All I got.
We got a whole dictionary.
Go have some breakfast.
All right. We watched the whole thing and we only went 8 minutes over our normal hour. So
not bad.
But we watched like 5 minutes the first 50 minutes. And then we just watched the rest real quick. All right. So that's our show. Toxic shame is at the core of a ridiculous amount of maladies, and as again illustrated today. But the thing is, you can fix your trauma. You must, if you want to get out of this paradigm. or otherwise you'll always be vulnerable one way or another. Maybe not to these cult leaders, but you're struggling some other way.
Yep.
Fix your core. You are enough just as you are. You have massive value just for who you are. The real you, the real authentic you is the best part of you. When you clear all that trauma out and embrace that, it changes, and get that in your core, heal that trauma, it changes everything. And then you take off and you have a good life, and you can do it because you truly do have more power than you know. That's our show. Thank you.